Hello and welcome to this Swift programming language video tutorial. In this video we're going to be talking all about property observers, and we're going to be using structs for this example. So let me just go over what we've got here right now, because I'm all about explaining by example, by demonstration, rather than just using words and explanation, because you can go and read the Swift docs for that if you want to. So this is going to show you a real-time example about how we can use property observers using Swift. All right, so just bear with me. Let's go through what we got. We've got a bank account struct here with transactions, okay, as empty in the beginning, and the balance here is then 0, okay, and is as a double, and they are var types, so we can change them, okay. And then we have an enum of transaction state, case pending, and case completed, case cancelled. So pending means it's not been processed yet. Completed, it is being processed, and approved, and cancelled means processed and declined. Okay, so these are the different states that we're going to be doing it. So basically, yeah, this is not processed. So now we have a transaction. A transaction has the amount that it got that actually was used to transact. This is a let, this can't change. The state of this transaction can change, because it can go from pending to complete or pending to cancelled. The reason we've got here is why. What was the reason for the transaction? Was it a withdrawal, or was it the funds deposited? And then we just got a computed property here is withdrawn, and it just checks to see whether or not the amount is less than 0. If it is less than 0, it's negative, so it's a withdrawal. And then we've got two mutating functions, approve and decline. They are basically going to set the states to either completed or cancelled. But the most important thing that we've got to look at here is the bank account. And this is the thing that we want to be able to modify. And what we want to be able to do is have a var account here, and we just say bank account. And when we say account balance, say like plus equals 10, I want transactions to be created with this, all right? And I want to basically see a log of what's going on afterwards. So I want to be able to come to account transactions and say for each, whoops, and I want to be able to then, let's just copy this, and then once we have this transaction, I want to be able to come here and say transaction and then state. I'm going to do a case cancelled, case completed, and then case pending. And obviously here we can just say transaction, and well, this should not be called because it's should have been handled. All right, so this is really a bad thing to happen, and in fairness, this is a fatal error, and it should crash the application. All right, and cancelled, we can just print now transaction reason here, and then once again in completed, we can do the transaction completed too, because this should tell us what happened in it anyway with the reason. All right, so when we run this, you'll see obviously we get nothing out. So we can come down to the bottom here and say balance here, and then say account balance, accounts balance. And we run this, we say account balance there, and there's nothing. And then when we just say and then trans, I can't type today, transactions are then below it. All right, so the aim is to be able to add this stuff as we go along, and then say say plus is equal to 5, and then do it again and say we're like maybe minus 20. And when we see this, we see that we're in -5, and we shouldn't allow this balance to be a negative at all. So we want to, we've now written our code, and we want to know that this cannot happen, this -5, that whatever we do here, it's always going to make sure that it stays above or equal to 0. And if a transaction does try and put it to less than 0, that transaction is going to be cancelled, and it's never going to happen. All right. So now what we've got to do is we've got to update bank account to fulfill this functionality down here. Okay. So in the previous video we looked at the computed properties, okay, the getter and then the setter. We don't need them in this example. We want to observe the transaction that's going on. We want to observe the old and the new value and so on. We want to be able to handle it. So the first one we want to be able to handle is willSet. So we want the value that we are going to receive we want to receive the new value. First of all, we want to analyze that value, and then after this, we want to be able to then know when it did set it. And in this did set, in the event that we're happy that value can stay, then we'll just let it stay. If not, we'll reset it back to how it was before. Okay, but let's first of all handle the willSet, because the willSet is where we're going to add the transactions, the pending transactions to it. And in the event that we get a completed transaction, in the event that this transaction is still pending here, then we'll set it to completed here. All right. So first of all let's make a couple of variables here, and we'll make an amount, and this is going to have to be of double, and we're going to do 0, and I'm going to mount a state, and this is going to be a transaction state, and this is going to be pending in the beginning. So the idea of this willSet here is that we want to add the transaction to the transactions, and then inside the didSet we're going to read that transaction, and then we're going to work out whether or not that transaction can actually happen. And if that transaction can't happen, then this is where we are going to set it then to cancelled. All right. So, and we'll then reset the balance based upon this. All right. So first of all, we need to generate our transaction, and now we have the transaction amounts, and then then the state, and we can actually change this to state, because this is going to be changed inside the didSet. Now the amount, we know what the balance is beforehand, and now inside of the willSet here, we have this new value. Okay, and what we can just do now is that if we know that if the new value of balance is greater than balance, when we subtract the old balance from the new balance, we're going to get a positive number. Now, if the new balance is less than the old balance, then we know we're going to get a negative number, which will help us, okay? Because we know if it's a negative number, it was a withdrawal, and if it was a positive number, then it's a deposit. So here we can just say inside of this, we know that new value is minus, right? The balance will give us the amount that we want here. So now we can change this to let, because we've solved this as well. So let's just go over this. If the new value is 12 and the current balance is 10, then we know that that was a deposit. And if the new value is 8 and then the current balance was 10, that's going to give us a -2. So we know it's a withdrawal here. Okay. So now that we've done this, we can now say transactions, transactions, append, and transaction. That's that bit done. All right. So we can now have a look at, we can now run it again to see how many transactions we get. And as you can see here, we're still pending, so we haven't handled them yet, which is good. All right. So now we come back to the didSet. The most important thing is we want to have our transaction. All right. And we're going to say transactions and last. And now we need to check if the balance plus, right, the transaction amounts is more than 0, sorry, more than or equal to 0, then it means that we're okay with it. All right, we're taking the balance, and if it's a plus, right, then we know it's going to be more than 0 because we know balance was 0 in the first place. Now, if this is a negative, as long as balance minus the negative is more than or equal to 0, then we are happy that the transaction state is then completed. Right? Else, we know that this transaction state means it's going to put it into a negative amount, and we're not allowing that right now. So we can come and say state is then cancelled. All right. And the next thing that we just need to do is put this transactions back on the list again, and we can say transactions end index minus 1 is equal to transaction, because we made a copy of it because it's a struct. And if it is cancelled, then we've got to say is balance is equal to old value. All right, and this is old value comes in here. All right, we could rename it if we wanted to, but we get that for free inside of here. So we're resetting. What we want to set the transaction state to this first of all, and yeah. So now we're setting the state to cancelled, and we got then the balance. All right. And then we wait for the code block's got to end anyway, so we're fine. All right. And we run this again. Now we come down the bottom, we see a balance 15, transactions 10 deposited. Let's have a look. 10 deposited, yes. 5 deposited, and 20 withdrawn. So I look around, I'm trying to find a bug here, but there isn't actually a bug. When you see balance at the bottom is equal to 15, the final transaction never actually went through. It actually got cancelled. However, we're not actually dealing with the cancelled transactions with inside of the reason. The reason there, it just said minus 20 withdrawn, but we actually need to handle this transactions in itself. And I'm just going to print out the account transactions just to debug to make sure they all have the right state, which they do have the right state, because if it was pending, this would have had a fatal error. So we know that it had the right state, and we look in didSet and the balance was set to old value, the state was cancelled. It's all working there, but in a second I find the problem. It's just because we weren't updating the reason with inside of the transaction to say, hey, this was cancelled. Okay, so we haven't got a bug here, all right? Because the whole point is we want to see our balance at the end, and we can see that the balance is 15 because it never the transaction got cancelled. So we just need to update this here. So let's just say if state is equal to cancelled, we'll just say transaction cancelled here instead. Okay, and then we're just going to come to this as well, and we've just got to say return here and return, and return there. And when we run this once again, we should see that we get the correct state. So we can remove this transactions now and run this once again, and now we get balance 15, transactions 10 deposited, 5 deposited, transaction cancelled. And we can come here also and say account balance plus equal 0, and you'll see that we get 0 deposited. All right, and we can say account balance times equals 2. So someone came and said, I'm going to double your account, so we've got 15 deposited, and then we can say account balance is equal to minus equals account balance times by 2. All right, and there we can see transaction cancelled as well. So this is a way that you can be able to use property observers. We don't need to put that in the brackets there. To be able to do other things as well. And what's great about it is we can reset the value if we want with inside of the didSet. It's a super interesting thing, and this willSet and didSet is going to become super apparent in the up and coming next videos. And you might not see it all the time, but when you start using Swift UI and property wrappers, this willSet, didSet, and the getter and the setter type technology, a part of the feature of Swift, is being used everywhere. All right, so it's a super important thing for you to understand. And yeah, so with that said, thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you've got something out this one video. It is a little bit complicated to get your head around just the business logic here, but it's plausible, it's possible to do, And even I make the occasional mistake on writing code, and obviously commenting whilst I'm writing the code as well. It's very difficult to think and also talk and also program at the same time, thinking about it. But we got there in the end. So if you've got any questions, feedback or concerns, then don't forget to put them in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and do all the other social media things that are out there to be done. Thank you very much for watching. My name's David Thorne, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao, and goodbye.